Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Brandon Jones, and I'm here obviously at the National Science Foundation, and I'm in the Director for Geosciences. I'm in the front office of that directorate, and I manage the education, career development, workforce development, broadening participation programs. I work across the directorate with other program directors in the divisions that have programs that fit within that programmatic or content context that I just mentioned. I also am able to work across the other directorates within NSF on similar issues. So it's great to meet everyone, and we'll be meeting everyone here. My background is in ocean sciences, but career-wise, I've been in the federal government for almost 18 years. Before NSF, I was at EPA. So anyway, I'll just call out folks if that's okay, and we'll just do quick introductions, maybe your name, institution, and why you're here today with the EPSCoR meeting. So I see Franek, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, hi, I'm Franek Hashuk. I'm a geologist at the Kansas Geological Survey, where I am a co-PI on a track 2 proposal, where we're looking at how we can better characterize geological materials so we can find critical minerals as well as water resources for the renewable energy industry here in Kansas and Iowa. Colleague at University of Iowa is the PI, Brad Kramer. But I'm excited to be here and learn more about sort of what's going on with the broader EPSCoR community.
Awesome, pleasure to meet you. And yeah, Brad is one of my my PIs, so great, it's great. Let's go to Kevin.
Morning, I'm Kevin Wagner. I'm the director of the Oklahoma NSF EPSCoR program here in Oklahoma, but I also serve as the director of our Oklahoma Water Resources Center as well. So I've got a dual interest in this group and this program. So real interested to learn some more.
Excellent, nice to meet you, Kevin. I see, is it Prabhakar? Am I saying that correctly?
That's right. This is Prabhakar Clement. I'm actually signing up from India. I'm glad it worked, actually. So because my travel conflicted, and I'm the PI of a track 2 program. Thankfully, my co-PI, Greg Isan, is right there. So I asked him to stand in my place just in case if I could not make it, but I'm glad I could make it. Hey, Greg. Our project is to basically look at groundwater recharge using big data. So our project is based on the big data science. So what we are hoping to accomplish is basically mapping groundwater recharge so we could use groundwater in a sustainable fashion.
Awesome, nice to meet you. And Greg, and let me say good evening, I guess, to you. Way over there, and I'm glad that the technology is working out. Yeah.
Yep, it's actually good night.
Not yeah,
like 10 o'clock in the night.
Oh God,
that's okay.
Well,
I'm glad I could make it.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for staying up a little later. Greg.
Good morning. I'm Greg Easton. As Prabhakar said, I'm on a project with him. I'm working on groundwater recharging a lot with the satellite data side of things. I'm also the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Education here at the University of Mississippi in the School of Engineering. And my background is in geology and geological engineering. So, and so I just by way of Franek, I used to work for the Missouri Geological Survey. So
awesome, survey power.
There you go.
Awesome. I think I see someone else logging in. We have our two, my two colleagues from NSF on the support team here. But we have a couple of other folks that are coming in. So we're just, I see Edwin and Marcy. We were just finishing up quick introductions. So we'll start with Edwin, if you'd like, just your name, where you are, your institution, and
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I came in late because I tried to log in early and nobody was letting me in. So I went to economics. My name is Edwin Cruz Rivera. I'm now at Morgan State University, formerly 7 years in the Virgin Islands, which was an EPSCoR jurisdiction. I just finished wrapping up as part of one of the panelists for the SBE, the BEC proposals that were submitted to EPSCoR, and I'm a track 1 through the University of Virgin Islands. I'm a track 1 project lead, and I'm a former track 4 PI.
Awesome. Welcome, Edwin. I'm glad you're able to push through the technological issues, and you're on. And oh, Marcy was on, but now Marcy's not. So okay, we'll just go with what we have here. So again, thank you for joining and coming to the breakout. I do have a presentation, but I think I don't know if I want to. I'm not going to start with that. I'm just going to start with, let's have a general discussion, and right now open it up for any questions or comments or anything that you just want to talk about as it relates to the geosciences and everything that we support here in the directorate, and maybe any, I don't know, possible connections within your EPSCoR states, regions that you might be thinking about, and then maybe I can point you to some resources or programs, and let's just have a conversation. So I see, Edwin, you have your hand up right now.
Yeah, actually, I came in with a very specific question in mind. Now that I'm collaborating with bioeconomists in marine science, interested in economic effects of harmful algal blooms, which is one of the areas that I'm doing a lot of research on. I'm always at a loss of where to send a proposal like that, whether I should send it to oceanography or send it to economics. So how do you see those? I mean, a little bit of background on that one is that, I've tried to submit papers that are interdisciplinary in nature, and I ran into this problem recently that they all want, everybody talks about the importance of this, but they always want the other person to take care of it. I just finally got published a paper on the history of aquatic sciences in the Virgin Islands. And for weeks, I kept bounce back without revision between the history journal saying that it was too biological and the biology journal saying that it was too historical. So I don't want to run into that problem with proposals now that I'm going to start foraying into this. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Edwin, excellent point, excellent issue that you and it's a key and it's a critical issue that you're bringing up, and it's across all of science right now. Really. This issue of lots of talk about convergence, collaboration. We've been talking about interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary for years, but our institutions still are not where they need to be to support that kind of work. And that includes federal funding agencies, but certainly our academic institutions, journals, et cetera, review panels and things of that nature. So one of the things we can do here at NSF is, behind the siloed core science programs that still exist, we can co-fund proposals that come in but behind the scenes and things of that nature. However, there are new programs here at NSF that merge, I think, in a very forward-looking way, these disciplinary areas. So all of that to say, I right now don't have a specific program that I would point you to, but the guidance I would give you is, and maybe I'll ask you, have you reached out to the program directors in either one of the divisions, a program director in the Ocean Sciences Division of GEO, or one in the economics, any of those economic programs in our Social and Behavioral Sciences Directorate?
Not yet.
Okay.
You're the first person in geosciences that I've spoken to about this, because we're hoping for the next cycle.
Okay, so my suggestion would be, and you said harmful algal blooms, correct? Economic impact on them. So That would be biological oceanography. I would start there and reach out to the contacts in that program and say, this is the issue. Could you direct me to the appropriate program director or program, or what do you think about it? And many of the institutions, PIs and institutions in EPSCoR states, certainly in the minority serving institutions, aren't aware that, and sometimes they're told not to reach out to NSF program directors. Don't bother them. No, please, we don't want you wasting your time. We want to be efficient. We want to support you. That's part of our job. We want to help. So please reach out to those program directors and feel free to copy me. Okay. I'll put my email in here in the chat, and that's anyone on the call. And you can mention, hey, I was in the EPSCoR breakout with Brandon, and he said to reach out to you with this idea.
Thank you.
Great. But before we, Prabhakar, before you go, Jeanette, I saw that you joined us. And if you are able, if you just wanted to introduce yourself, let us know where you are institution-wise or so, and what your interests are. And if not, we can come back to you. But Jeanette may have stepped away or is busy. Okay, Prabhakar, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a specific question. So I'm a PI for a track 2. So we have a substantial component on broader impact. So for example, our team is working with, right now we got 4 MSIs working with us. And we're doing many things. But one thing I specifically notice is when I work with MSIs and few of this thing, they just don't have the research infrastructure to start with, right? So we focus more on education and we focus more on training them. Whereas the other partners, which I'm working like Greg, for example, Ole Miss and LSU, other partners, I could quickly look for metrics like journal publication and other things. It's a classic scientific metric, right? So I was just struggling when I write my reports and when I report to the NSF on my progress report. From your programmatic point of view, what are the metrics we should be documenting? So, it's not just us looking good, but rather I believe the money is spent wisely in educating people or inspiring and bringing those professors into our team. But they have challenges. They teach 6 classes as opposed to 2 classes I teach, right? So they are completely different breed of people. I can only engage them heavily during summers, basically. Mm-hmm. So the yardsticks we use to measure the R1 schools should be slightly different from MSIs. And how do I, from a PI point of view, should be doing that? So when I document it, just some thoughts on it.
Yeah, another great, it's not really a question, it's another great issue that we are, many of us who have known, and now it's just coming to light that the playing field is not equitable when it comes to, and not, again, not for anyone's fault. It's just the way the systems are, could be at the state level, could be federal access to dollars, et cetera, that has not allowed certain institutions to build up their human infrastructure and management infrastructure and research infrastructure to support the innovations that we want to have in science. And so I hear you loud and clear. Let me ask, I'll start with a question back to you. As part of the project, was there an external evaluator or someone with that kind of expertise that was part of the team, or at least consulted at the beginning of the kind of the research project formation or anything like that?
Not at the beginning, but we do have an external evaluation team, and we do have at least one person who is cognizant about it. But we did intentionally recruit a pretty solid subject experts as our external evaluator, and that's really my challenge. I could see that those guys beating up us on, which is okay. I mean, we need to be challenged, basically, right? So, which is a good thing. but I'm just trying, I mean, I actually feel that we have done substantial work on the broad impact side, but I'm still struggling. What should be the metrics I should, like a PhD graduation, journal publication, conference presentation? Those are very, very valid metrics we can go after, right? And for MSI point of view, I'm just looking for some good, I mean, of course, we do get them involved in some of our journal papers or our conference papers, things like that. I'm still struggling to understand how we could, I mean, realistically put some good metrics, basically. I'm just wondering, since this session is about broad impact stuff, you might have some ideas on, you would have faced the same thing in the GEO with other projects, and maybe have some suggestions. Hey, try this, try that, whatever.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And so it sounds like the evaluators came on after the project was developed. And so that's, you know, in an ideal situation, you would want them there at the beginning, because then they could design appropriate metrics to go along with and extend beyond the traditional metrics which you listed, which are important. But then there are these other metrics that usually natural and physical scientists are not really aware of, and nor should we be, because that's not our world, which is why we partner with those individuals that have that expertise to help us design the appropriate evaluation and assessment tools. So in this instance, you might be where you are. I appreciate that you're thinking more broadly about that. And I'm going to drop a link in here. And I see my colleague Chi-Chi has joined us. Hi, Chi-Chi, how are you? We'll ask you to.
How are you?
Good, good. As soon as I finish, and I'd love to hear from you as well on this. As soon as I finish my thought, I'll ask you to introduce yourself and weigh in if you see fit. I dropped something in the chat that it's a blog, but it's from or about the National Alliance for Broader Impacts. And they used to have a website, and I can't really find it anymore. But anyway, this was a group of scientists, a lot of them at R1s, who came together about this issue and provided some information that PIs across different disciplines can think about when they're thinking about broader impacts, when they want to maybe extend into societally beneficial measures from their science. How do they do that? How do we set that up? How do we weave that into our research design and framing? Those kinds of things. Again, you're kind of well into the project, so there's probably expertise out there, like how do we build now into an existing project these particular metrics that we want to look for. So Chi-Chi, did you get? I think you came in on kind of where Prabhakar was offering his struggle about expanding the reporting of broader impacts from their project beyond the traditional conference presentations. Prabhakar, I'll let you go ahead and.
Yeah. Help me understand.
Yeah, I know she quite well. She probably knows most of my questions. Hey, greetings from India, actually. So I'm sliding up from India since I was traveling to be with my mom. So anyway, the question was, beyond the traditional metrics like journal papers and research proposals and other things, but I mean, I have 4 MSI partners, and they have their own challenges, right? They teach 6 classes, and so I can't expect, and they don't have a graduate program. I mean, they have probably master's program, not a PhD program. So the question is, what are the other non-traditional metrics we could document in our research reports and this thing to kind of show our progress in terms of building this relationship, building this broader impact, from a broader impact point of view? What are the other alternate yardsticks we can use for success? That was my question.
So to make sure I understand correctly, you're looking for additional metrics to be able to report success in broader impacts as well as broadening participation?
That's correct.
Okay. And you already mentioned papers published, right? Like the standard patents, conference presentations, all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we've talked a lot about is relationship building, partnership building. There's a lot of things that are really important to being able to establish partnerships that often aren't reflected in those long-term or downstream outcomes, right? And so some of the times it's being able to have the connections, the contacts first, right? And then you have maybe a shared project, right? Maybe you have a trainee that you are working with and co-mentoring with a partner at that institution, right? And so those are some earlier term, I don't want to say metrics, but indicators that show that you have a partnership or a collaboration that is being built upon, right? And then you're also able to describe what the mutual beneficial benefits are for each of you. Okay, so for you, I don't want to imply what yours might be, right? But it may be accessing a piece of equipment that you did not have before. It may be having a partnership with a community member that you didn't have, but you gained it from the partner that you had at the other institution. These are all time-intensive things that take a lot of time. And that time is also something that you factor into building a given partnership. We often expect you to do that before the proposal is submitted and to show evidence of that. So there is value in being able to have that as a earlier stage metric, because then it will long-term strengthen proposal submissions when you're able to show evidence of, here's my partner, here's the project they're working on, here's the trainees that are benefiting, right? Here are the additional community partners. Here, if you're doing K through 12 engagement, right? That's hard to get into a given school district. So even showing that you have support from the leadership, principal, superintendent, those are all ways for you to be able to benchmark, am I on the right track in building the infrastructure to be able to establish a given partnership. So this is in the case of a research partnership or a broader impact activity. That's what I would think of, because all of that will then feed into the longer term metrics of the publication, of the presentation at a given conference, right? Of the fact that you have a certain number of trainees, and then you have a track record of trainees, right? That's a longer term metric in terms of research collaborations. And we also talked about patents and things like that, but it's really showing that you can create the we call it social capital, right? You have social capital that has been developed through the establishment of the partnership, right? And it's something that's sustainable and sustained. That's the other thing. And I think we've seen a lot of examples of when we see one directional or unidirectional partnerships, right? Where one person is giving and the other person is receiving, and there's not kind of something going back, right? And so trying to be able to establish that you have a bi-directional partnership where both people are benefiting is key. And I'll go one more to say, often in some of our projects, we see that the benefit to that the minority serving partner is through the trainees, right? Trainees are getting involved in research at an R1 institution, that's great, but where's the sustainability in that, right? So then if there's a PI at a minority serving institution, are they receiving equipment? Are they receiving something that's more sustainable to help them build their research agenda, right? Time release, right? Or other types of institutional support that's been provided as a function of the partnership, the institutional support for that. Yeah, faculty exchange. Thank you, Brandon. I really want to push us towards thinking of going beyond that traditional partnership measure, because I'm trying to understand if we're doing a bidirectional partnership, then what's sustainable? What is the sustainable that you're giving to your partner beyond the human workforce development component? So those are my initial thoughts. I have nothing prepared, so I apologize for any confusion, but this is great discussion.
No, this was a brainstorming session, as Brandon suggested. So thank you. Gave me some ideas to think about.
Perfect. Thank you, Chi-Chi. And I dropped some other things in the chat that came to mind while Chi-Chi was talking. So yes, we just kind of want to expand our thinking beyond the traditional and it's not that for broader impacts that you may be creating any more work for yourselves. These are things that you might already be doing that you just hadn't been thinking about that are broader impacts. And then boom, you can add those to, yes, the research design moving forward, but also in the reporting, and then also for future, opportunities. You've demonstrated success in all the things that Chi-Chi just mentioned as well. So, and again, as I mentioned as I mentioned before, reaching out to your program director to ask questions. That helps. Excellent. Where do we want, anyone else? Where do we want to go? Any questions, comments that came up from this discussion? While people are thinking, I want to share something, and this relates to Prabhakar's comment. You see on my screen here, and this is public knowledge in the FY23 budget request from NSF. I just want you to know that NSF is aware of this issue, has been aware of it for quite some time, and now we are moving forward with a request to support an effort that you see here in the middle called GRANTED, and that's the acronym, and it stands for Growing Research Access for Nationally Transformative Equity and Diversity, and it's about building a systemic, I'll call it a movement, to support institutions that, for different reasons, are not on the same level regarding research infrastructure as other institutions. But it recognizes that the PIs at these institutions are experts in their own fields because of things that were mentioned, like teaching load or lack of grants infrastructure, the human infrastructure, as Chi-Chi was mentioning. They're not able to really move forward on their ideas and get them developed because of these other responsibilities. Well, NSF is looking through this particular effort, if Congress likes it and gives us support for it, to start to address all of those issues in a more systemic way. So not just let's try this, let's try that. Because it's systemic, there's no one magic bullet. It's going to have to be, the solutions are going to have to be approached systemically, or systematically to the system. So anyway, both of those, I should say. So I just wanted to let you know that NSF is aware. We are thinking about this. This effort, I believe, will sit in where Chi-Chi works right now in the Office of Integrative Activities, if Congress says yes. And I will say, even if Congress doesn't, there's quite a bit of discussion across the agency about this. And I know within the Geosciences Directorate, I could speak for that. We're looking at ways to support these kinds of efforts anyway, through our regular programs and our structures and efforts. So we want to work with you all in the community to continue to identify these issues and figure out solutions to them. So any other comments, questions? As mentioned, I could launch into the presentation that is geo-focused, but most of it is in that area that I manage, which is career development, workforce training, and broadening participation. But I could just send you that presentation. You don't have to go through that. Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, Chi also the new access data sites of development algorithm in terms of other metrics. Yep. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just add a perspective, I guess. On the one hand, I really love this ability to work with other institutions, and I'm part of this EPSCoR project with Iowa, and we're part of a DOE project with all of our surrounding states, and it's a lot of fun. But there's still sort of that viewpoint of the institution wants to get the most bang for the buck out of every grant, and they don't necessarily always want as many co-PIs and things like that, because it's less financial reward that they're getting in a world where, here in Kansas at least, we are looking at a big demographic decline in college age students. And so things are becoming very bottom line oriented. And I do appreciate all these different programs that are out there that can show the budgetary value of these sorts of collaborations. So I think it's a really good idea to be not just encouraging the collaboration from the NSF level, which gets support from our administrators, but also providing that those capability building programs for the partners, which make them look even more and more like a partner, and more attractive to work with. And so we reach out as much as we can here from KU and KGS to our communities. And it's just great to see all these other opportunities to help with that. And I think it's going to be really valuable going forward in the next rounds of proposals that we do to have these opportunities out there, and these ideas for how to right size that collaboration between any two organizations. So, but yeah, hierarchies still exist, and unfortunately you have to operate within them.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to come to Jeanette in a minute. But I just dropped a link to your point, Fronic, to a new program here in the geosciences called focused on cultural transformation in the community. And it touches, the focus is on everything that we're talking about here. And what Chi-Chi was mentioning, more relational science than transactional, and more equitable efforts than lopsided, put it that way. And what is needed, and so we have some support from leadership, some decent funding in here to stimulate the community to think about those kinds of partnerships, those kinds of collaborations, working with communities, operating with cohorts. The science is climate change. It's the National Science Foundation, so we always want more science,
right? But
science doesn't conduct itself; humans do. And so,
right.
If humans aren't allowed to move and be who they are with their interests in these, as you mentioned, Fronic, spot on, these hierarchies, these silos, these exclusionary practices with gatekeepers, all of those kinds of things, then are we really doing top-notch science if we're not
right.
allowing all perspectives? We don't have the luxury. Well, at least I don't, because I don't know the guy who's trying to buy Twitter, and I don't know the guy who owns Amazon. So I don't have a space program.
I don't know them either.
I'm stuck on the planet, and therefore I want to do everything I can do to make sure the planet's safe for my daughter and everyone else. So anyway, I'm on my soapbox now. But Fronic, did you have anything else? I'm going to go to Jeanette real quick to introduce.
No, go. I'll cede the remainder of my time to the Honorable Jeanette.
Awesome, Jeanette, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and.
Thanks for the invitation. My name is Jeanette Miller. I'm Associate Director at the Delaware Environmental Institute at the University of Delaware. And I serve as the EOD lead on our Track 1 EPSCoR. And I just wanted to float an idea about some things we've been doing around, monitoring the progress of trainees. And I would love to hear any other ideas that you have around that, around, workforce development and the opportunities that we have across our institutions. And one of the things we've been doing, and I'd like to do more and better than this, but I don't think a lot of people are doing this, is that we've been using the National Student Clearinghouse Student Tracker. It's a database It was originally designed to serve the U.S. Department of Education TRIO programs so that the TRIO could see what's happening to our students. Did they get a degree? You know, that kind of thing. So it has huge coverage, like 98% of students, undergraduate level students in the U.S. So it makes it possible to track a student's persistence and graduation in almost every institution in the country, no matter where they are. So even if they move from, East Coast to West Coast to go to grad school, we can still continue to monitor them long term. So we just coined this expression on track, that if students are persisting in a degree program, even if they change institutions, but they're still persisting and they get a degree or more, one or more degrees, we consider that sort of on track toward the workforce. And that's been working great for us. And we've been using it in EPSCoR, we've been using it in other proposals. But I would love to hear how everyone else is tracking. And this is especially because, we're trying to track the progress of very diverse people, bringing them into the geosciences. And so we have an especially challenging context in this area. So, but I would love to hear what you're doing to track, kind of monitor your students. Our evaluators do a great job of kind of like in the moment evaluation, where students report at the beginning of summer, I didn't know this thing, and at the end of summer, I did. But that's very immediate. So I would love to hear anything that, ideas about how we can do better.
Excellent. Thank you for the introduction, Jeanette. And by the way, my graduate degree is from the University of Delaware at the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment. Way back then, it was marine studies. But anyway, I just dropped into the chat the link to our GeoPaths program, and I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But I would encourage you to go to research.gov when you can go to the awards search function. And if you type in GeoPaths, and you can filter on the left-hand side if you're not familiar with the website. And you'll be able to see what we are supporting now in this program and even in the past, and some of the ideas that touch on what you are bringing up about tracking students. Certainly it certainly is a challenge anyway, but if you have a program or a project funded under a program, and then the funding ends, and then there's no more support for the students, or the students graduate, all those kinds of things, there's another layer of challenge there. But there are novel ways of doing that in some of these projects that we've supported through this program. I can't put my finger on any one in particular right now. I would have to do a little bit of research, but I know they're there because I recall. So I wanted to offer you that programmatic information, but I do want to open it up to our other colleagues on the call about Jeanette's question regarding tracking, and this kind of touches on our previous conversation about the STEM workforce and what does that really mean? And are we tracking, as Prabhakar was mentioning before, are we using the same metrics to define persistence and success? A degree, or a job, or a placement, or something like that. What do others think? Prabhakar?
Yeah. So what we have been doing is kind of an ad hoc to some extent, because of the track 2 project, 4 years, and with COVID, we already finished 2 years, so it's been a challenge. So we simply just keep track of, and we used to have a different tracking system for track 2, which now has changed a little bit. So there are a lot of moving parts here, but we simply just the old-fashioned way, like keep track of in our yearly report. We just report the students, and if they ended up going to graduate school, we just report that, saying that we give an update. We have a big table and just keep track of it. Nothing fancier than that. So, but I completely agree with you. It'll be nice to see. But on the other hand, I've discussed this with my colleagues. One of the criticism is basically, how do you know the causal connection, right? How did you make this particular track 2 project help this person, for example, from a minority institution to actually go into this particular career? I don't know that. We claim credit for that, but what if the person would have done that regardless? I mean, I don't know how do we quantify that. We just track it and leave it. I mean, being such a small project, but I can see track 1 could do a better job, especially you had a, I mean, the track 1s which you get a 10-year support could probably do a better job, but something to think about, definitely.
Excellent. Anyone else? And I'm going to drop another link in the chat, and some may be aware of the American Geosciences Institute. If not, take a look at that. They do an annual, they have several reports that they publish, but the one I'm thinking about that relates to Jeanette's question is the status of recent geoscience graduates. I think they also have one on geoscience workforce annually. And they, I mean, they're kind of the umbrella organization across all geoscience entities, certainly the professional societies from AGU on, you know, ASLO, GSA, AMS, all the smaller regional ones, as well as universities and colleges that have GEO programs. And so they amass a huge amount of data and do a great job forecasting the needs for the geoscience workforce and strategies and things of that nature. So I would suggest you take a peek at them. And we have supported here in GEO AGI recently to take a look at the impacts of COVID. As a matter of fact, around the summer of 2020, when the pandemic was, you know, just raging, they received that award to begin to do a survey, and the survey is still ongoing, and it's looking at the impact of the pandemic on geosciences. So at the institutions, federal agencies everywhere. And so you can connect with them and still participate in the survey. But also, I believe there's some, and we'll come to Edwin, and while Edwin's talking, I'll try to find the most recent report, make sure that it's public, and drop that in the chat as well, because that's very helpful. And that's a question, I know we have about 12 minutes left, but that's a question I want to ask you all. How are you adjusting 2 years into this, 2+ years into this pandemic at your institutions, state levels, et cetera, et cetera? We'll come to that in a minute. Edwin.
So I don't think that we have a magic bullet for this. You know, for databases like that, I would really like to know what resource you're talking about, Jeanette, because I've never heard of it before. And I think that part of the reason for that is because they have differently successful coverage. Like I was in the, you know, Puerto Rico, outside territories like Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands tend to be often underrepresented in those tracking systems for a gazillion historical reasons and practical ones. So we tend to not go to those. And I was mostly working in sort of very close communities in which the tracking was mostly done through the alumni associations and through networks of people who knew people. So I think that it would be ideal. I think that this particular tool that you mentioned may be very effective now that I'm here in the States, so I'm definitely going to look it up. But in many cases, it requires a village. And the more of these potential venues that you bring in, the more effective you become. So some universities have people that actually do this internally. Like I know that at UEI, there is a division of, what is it? Strategic enhancement, I think it's called, or you know, the people that do the statistics for the university, somebody within that office takes care of trying to track people down. So that's our go-to. But in a case like an institution like Delaware that has access to sort of 98% effective databases, I don't see a problem with that being the place to go. There is also, there are particular fellowships that keep really good track of their awardees. Like I know the Ford Foundation is very good. I mean, they were finding me in Egypt when I was faculty there. So it might not be a bad thing to approach them and see how they do it. because those are fellowships specifically for underserved minorities.
That's a great suggestion, Edwin. Yeah, thank you for that. And there's several. There's another link that I provided in the chat to that report I was talking about, impacts of COVID. But yes, let's not derail the current line of conversation about tracking students and tracking participants. Increasingly important from the federal agency perspective, because we are, when I say we, I'm talking about the science agencies that support research, internal and external. We're under increasing scrutiny, and not just from Congress, who we really are supposed to be answering to as far as our budget, but from public opinion. And when you're talking about the Earth system sciences, what we call the geosciences, we're there. I personally have some concern about how we communicate what we do, how we offer the return on investment from taxpayer dollars to what it is that we are researching, what is it that we can package. I hate to use these very capitalist words, but the package and advertise and say to our clients, which are the taxpayers, to the general public, this is what Earth system science is about, and this is why it is important, and this is why you should care that it's not in your K-12 science classroom. It's just still physics, chemistry, and biology, that it's not across so many different higher ed institutions as really core science subjects, majors, or integrated in very creative ways in some of the other majors, et cetera. So, we just have to figure out how to do a better job of advertising that. But, and that's part of the reason why we having this discussion today. Are there models out there now, or that you could think about, as Edwin was talking, for EPSCoR institutions, maybe certain in EPSCoR regions, not just states, but maybe a regional perspective about what we can do to move past the transactional way we do science to relational, build more collaborations with communities, smaller institutions, MSIs. We haven't even talked about two-year colleges yet. The majority of underserved, use that term, individuals who are not overrepresented in the sciences, the majority, or just in general, in undergraduate institutions are at two-year colleges. So they're not at tribal colleges or HBCUs, they are at two-year colleges where localized, societally relevant research would really matter. What is it those students could be doing in the geosciences that relates directly to their communities, where they're learning science, the communities are benefiting, et cetera, et cetera. So those kinds of, and that's back to the sustainability elements or the broader impacts pieces, different things to think about there. Franek had to go, and I know we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. Any last ideas, thoughts? I'm glad I just decided to ditch the presentation and just have a discussion, because I think this is much more useful for you all, as well as any last things.
I'm wondering, so I'll go ahead. Was there somebody else? Because I've talked to
Eric had joined us. I'm sorry, Edwin, we're going to come to you quickly. Eric, I know you joined us a few minutes ago. If you wanted to introduce yourself, just so folks will know who you are.
Sure, I know some of you folks here. I'm actually an EPSCoR program officer. I'm jumping around here. Great plea for regional focus, Brandon. I love that. I've got an urban and regional planning background, and EPSCoR is really taking that seriously, moving forward with linking the regionality opportunities like in our track 2 with the emphasis on broadening participation. EPSCoR states are really lucky in that a lot of us are close together. particularly in the Northwest and the Northeast. So there's a lot of regionality already going on. We definitely like to see more, and so we're trying to encourage some of those connections that maybe EPSCoR states haven't taken advantage of in the past. So I'm just going to say hi, and I'm a social scientist, but I do a lot of interdisciplinary work with GEO folks. So I always like to check on what's going on in GEO. So Brandon, great to meet you. I hope we get to talk soon.
Yes, nice meeting you, Eric. Thanks for popping in, and appreciate that the expertise you're bringing to EPSCoR. Very important now. Edwin, comment, question?
Just quick question. I'm just wondering about plans, programs that may not be announced, but maybe in the works. Unfortunately, it's not like once an EPSCoR, always an EPSCoR. That's not the way that the money works. But I would like to know, being in an HBCU, if there are other programs that can engage with EPSCoR jurisdictions in the future, specifically from the Division of Geosciences, because I'm aware of others that are sort of cross-cutting in directories, but wondering about something that would be closer to home for somebody with my skills, so to speak.
Yeah, great question. Are you aware of the HBCU EIR program?
I've tried EIRs before. I'm pretty good at getting the letter. We almost liked you, but again.
Yeah. So
time and a place.
Right. And yeah. So nothing. Yes. So there's these targeted programs like the HBCU program, HSI, the EIR, and then there are these other programs that are, the core research programs in the directorates. There are the two programs that I mentioned there, even though they're not core research, they're more focused on the individuals or the culture in the geosciences. But there is a new emphasis and a lot more discussion within the geosciences about review panels, about committees of visitors and how they are, who sits on those communities, who sits on those panels, who's doing the review. And so in some internal things that NSF across the board needs to really look at from the program director perspective as to, are we doing all we can do to make sure the playing field is level, other than just we're writing a different kind of solicitation, but we still have the same process. We have to, again, back to the systemic thing, we have to look across all of that. But specifically to your question, Edwin, I would welcome, maybe just a follow-up conversation with you and anyone. I dropped my email in the chat. I'll do that again for anyone that came on recently. Please reach out. And if you have any specific questions, or you just want to have a 30-minute one-on-one, you have some ideas, reach out. We can do that.
Has there been a talk about mid-career awards? I know that at least in biological sciences, that was one of the new pushes.
There, mid-career, yes. And I believe I have to find that information. If you wouldn't mind emailing me for GEO, because not all divisions within GEO are involved with mid-career. I think they're out of the 4, I think maybe 2 or 1. So, but I can't speak, on that without getting some more information. But that's an excellent one. We also have a new supplement program, and we're at 12:30 now, that is focusing on post-bac. So those students who have, maybe Jeanette, you're interested in this, they have their bachelor's degree for whatever reason, not quite sure, and pandemic impacts, other responsibilities. They're in this limbo, this hold between what they want to do next, but they have a bachelor's degree. So right now, this program is, and I'm going to drop the link in here, I know we have to go, is a, let me find Right now, it's just a supplement program. However, oh, it's reps. That's what it's called, GEO reps. Who knows what will happen in, the future?
Edwin, this always comes up when we talk about the EPSCoR track 4s, because they are focused on early career, and we get a lot of interest in expanding to mid-career, and program officers are pushing for it, but these things unfortunately take a lot of time. So hopefully you'll still be mid-career by the time we get it done. So we all run that risk of aging out of opportunities.
Yeah, excellent point, Eric. And I know we have to go, and that's why NSF is trying to, in certain areas, build a continual support system all the way across, including those transition points. So so if you do age out of one, you're still supported or possibly supported as you move on in your career. So, all right. I think this has been great. I've enjoyed it. We're at the bottom of the hour. Some great questions, great comments. Hopefully there's some information that's been shared. And we appreciate the work that you all are doing, and feel free, and I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it, reach out. If you have questions, just ask, and we'll try to point you in the right direction and get you some information. But thank you again for joining. Good luck with everything and your projects, and keep pushing.